Guys, we have early reports out that Oracle is planning on firing 30,000 employees. 30,000, that's nearly 20% of their workforce. Now, Oracle has not officially announced it yet, and it's not being widely reported, but there are a lot of signs pointing to this being a real possibility. Now, who's most at risk when it comes to layoffs like this? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. First, I just want to cover, why would Oracle make a move like this? Why would Oracle look to lay off 20% of its workforce? Well, you guessed it, the reason is AI, but it might not be for the exact reasons that you think. Okay, because we've seen companies like Salesforce fire thousands of humans and replace them with AI agents. We've seen Amazon replace thousands, if not tens of thousands of humans with robots. But that's not exactly what we're seeing here with Oracle. And by the way, if you're subscribed to the channel, you would understand what's happening in the job markets before everyone else, because 6 days a week, we're out here covering, discussing, and talking about these layoffs and how AI is impacting the future of work. So again, make sure you hit subscribe so you stay in the know. The reality, though, of what's happening here at Oracle is a little bit different than what we've seen at some of these other companies, because it comes down not necessarily to AI implementation, but into financing their AI initiatives. Basically, they need lots and lots of cash. Oracle needs billions, tens of billions of dollars. And the thought process here is that by going through mass layoffs of 30,000 people, that could free up to $10 billion to finance these AI infrastructure build out. That's right. This is why they need the cash, guys. They need to free up cash so they can build out data centers and infrastructure. You see, you may not know that Oracle has obligations with big companies like OpenAI, NVIDIA, Meta, et cetera, et cetera. And they need to raise insane amounts of cash. They need to raise about $50 billion this year to fund the additional capacity they need for this cloud infrastructure build out. Now, this normally wouldn't be a problem because you've seen this. We've talked about this a lot over the past months. You know, companies are raising just insane amounts of money, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, we're getting close to like trillions of dollars being spent on AI infrastructure build out. The problem, though, is the banks are starting to slow up. The banks are starting to get cold feet. And I think it's a really important thing for us to understand, again, as men that we want to remain relevant, respected, and financially free. Understanding how money is moving and where we can find the best opportunities is important. Regardless, the banks are starting to show some big signs of concern that we are in an AI bubble. And that, my friends, is why Oracle is kind of like, oh crap, we have to do all this build out, we have to buy all these GPUs, we have to build out this infrastructure, this energy. And now the banks are getting cold feet. In fact, the Oracle stock has dropped by nearly half since September. It's dropped from over $300 per share to about $160, $158 per share. So it's been a huge roller coaster for Oracle stock. And on top of that, additionally, guys, investors have really scrutinized Oracle's AI infrastructure build out in its recent weeks because they are just raising insane amounts of debt. Guys, they have raised about $58 billion in debt in just the past couple months. And in addition to that, Oracle's fortunes are becoming increasingly more tied to OpenAI. And problem for them is that OpenAI is not a profitable company. And they have not done a really good job of detailing how they're going to finance future infrastructure plans. And guys, I think OpenAI may be in some big trouble. And again, any company that's attached to OpenAI is going to be in big trouble. I'll explain here in just a moment. But in a video a couple of weeks ago, we covered how Google Gemini is completely eating OpenAI's lunch. They're completely eating it. OpenAI has bled about 15% of their users to Gemini in recent weeks. And in this video, I highlight a major change that's coming, which is Google Gemini signing a deal with Apple to put Gemini on all the iPhones. So now, every time you buy a phone, whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone, you're getting Google Gemini. And I don't expect a world where most people are going to be using OpenAI. They're going to be paying for an OpenAI subscription and a Gemini subscription, because why would you? You have already an LLM that's serving your needs, and at least in the consumer market. In the enterprise field, things might be different. There might be different LLMs that serve different purposes that are better for different tools, for different use cases. Claude is going to be better for writing code, for example, and OpenAI might be better for reading spreadsheets and writing emails. We'll see how it all plays out. I think that these LLMs will find their niches. Regardless, OpenAI is on a downward trajectory, and at the end of the day, distribution is the big advantage that I think OpenAI had, ChatGPT had at first, in that when LLMs started to become mainstream and going viral a couple years ago, ChatGPT became ubiquitous. Like when you thought AI, you're thinking chat. People call it chat or GPT, whatever. I'll give you an example. Think back for all my oldies out there, all my millennials, you probably remember MySpace. MySpace was the social network before there were social networks. Nobody uses MySpace anymore. And it's a little bit scary for OpenAI to be attached. And then again, any company attached to OpenAI is in trouble. And we covered this in a video a few weeks ago as well, because the problem that these companies are going to have is that they're all spending money with each other. So OpenAI gets a big loan, they're gonna invest it into Oracle, and then Oracle gets that loan, they're creating this Ouroboros of financing between all these companies. And then the problem here, it's almost like a Ponzi scheme in a way. The problem here is that if one of those companies go under, the entire system falls down, the entire snake, it has nothing else to eat. So I think that the banks are starting to see this. And again, it is causing a big rift within Oracle, because the reality is that the banks are concerned. And in fact, they're so concerned that they've nearly doubled the interest rates that they charge Oracle for data center financing over the past several months, because they're just not exactly sure how or when they're ever going to get their money back from these investments. This is, again, especially, I think one of the big threats here for Oracle is that they've kind of hitched their wagon to OpenAI. And if OpenAI goes down, I mean, it's going to be kind of a ripple effect. You're going to see problems with Microsoft. OpenAI is a big deal with Microsoft. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And, there's this idea, I think, to kind of flesh out this idea about the problem with the financing that Oracle has here. There's this idea that during a gold rush, you don't want to go out and dig for gold, you want to sell shovels. And that's kind of like what's happening with Oracle, building out cloud infrastructure and putting GPUs together, building data centers. You're essentially, at that point, selling shovels, okay? But here's the problem, because eventually, at some point, people are going to stop asking to buy shovels. And if you're the one stuck with a huge heap of shovels, you could go bankrupt, you could go under, and you could have big problems. There's regulatory issues around data centers. We've seen a number of data center build-outs that have had tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars invested in them, only to be pulled out because of political and regulatory issues. So there's just a lot of kind of unknown when it comes to these data center build-outs, okay? And it's just kind of a crazy time. So just to kind of bring this thing back full circle as far as why should you care, and in addition to like being aware of stocks and bonds and who's being laid off and where, and some of the trickle effects that can happen here, because again, if Oracle goes under, then OpenAI's, you're just see a kind of like a domino effect when it comes to this AI bubble popping. But who's gonna be affected as far as the workplace goes? I think this is one of the most important things for me. Am I going to be able to remain relevant and respected in order to generate income so I can invest and be financially free over the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of my life? I want to make sure that I'm good, that my kids are good, that I'm able to provide, because there is a very real possibility that the job that you're doing now, that the clients you're serving now are going to be completely different in 5 years. Heck, in 1 year, in 2 years, things are moving so fast. And I get why people are scared and concerned. It's reasonable. Now is the time to be learning. So who's going to be laid off? And I think this is something that is a really important concept, guys, for us to understand as we go into 2026, as we go into this AI age. Again, we haven't had an official announcement, but what we can expect from Oracle is that jobs that are administrative and not directly related to AI infrastructure and data centers are going to get cut. They're going to get cut. They're going to get cut. And why is this? Well, that's because Oracle has really, if they're going to make this thing work, they need to be very good at building out data centers. They need to be very good, they need to find ways to make their money actually work for them. They need to be able to pay back that debt. Otherwise, the whole thing crumbles. And most of the time, guys, in most cases, I would bet that if you work for a company, you have no idea what the mission, vision, what the goals for 2026 actually are. You probably aren't reading the internal annual memo from the CEO of your company. If you're a business owner, you're probably not 100% aware of what your clients are doing either, okay? But those memos are actually really important, guys, because they give real insights to what your company's priorities are. And if you're not aligned, if your job, if your task is not completely aligned with what the company's priorities are, you become pretty expendable, right? The reality is that it's hard to do everything really well. And especially right now, companies are going to be really focused on what are we just going to be the best at right now? And who are the people in our business and our staff that help us achieve that goal. If you don't align with that goal, the bottom line is you're expendable. And we kind of talk about this a lot, which is follow the money. And when companies are spending so much money on AI and infrastructure, in automation and so on and so forth, you need to have some skills. You need to be building momentum into that, because if you're one of the guys on the sideline that says, I don't want AI, in some cases, there's guys out there that are actually sabotaging AI implementation. You're putting yourself at big risk because you're not aligned with the rest of your organization. And again, for all the business owners out there, they know this just as well as anyone. If I have guys on my team and girls, if there's people on my team that aren't aligned with the mission, if they aren't aligned with the goal, if they don't understand what we're trying to do, I don't want them. They become a problem to executing and achieving the next layer. So anyway, guys, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here from Oracle. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see, and I'll definitely be paying attention to when the official memo comes out. But this is why you're subscribed, guys, because you want to hear it here first. You want to understand what's happening and what's coming down the pipeline. All right, boys, if you liked today's video, you'll love yesterday's video. Go check it out, watch it, learn it, and I'll see you over there. Peace.